Hi guys, this is Rishi here. I got this new report called Reboot from Deloitte and FICCI, and this relates to the FMCG and retail e-commerce industry. It's recently released, I think, this week, and this will be available on the GAP platform. But I thought it would be a good idea to also discuss this amongst us. This is a 63-page report, so I'm not sure how many of you would actually read it. So I thought it would be a good idea just to run through it, the important points that I thought were interesting in the report. So that we can have a discussion on the platform, and then you can obviously go ahead and read it. So what I'll do today is I'll just take you through some of the things that I thought were discussing about the report, and maybe something which I did not like. So not the entire report, but I'll just quickly run through some of the information. So just to give a background, this report is obviously been done as a pandemic being a on the backdrop, and it basically talks about the need for reinventing the business, especially from the customer experience point of view, because of the changes in the customer behavior that would lead to the changes in the supply chains and the omni-channel adoption that the companies would need to do. So it touches upon, I think, six important aspects, as they call it, and these are realigning the business and business priorities, enhancing the consumer and shopper experience, building a flexible distribution network, adopting an omni-channel model across the brands, and operating efficiently to thrive in a new business landscapes. These are the six things that they have tried to cover in the report. Um, First thing that caught my attention was a graph which was interestingly titled as the Global Anxiety Index. And it answers the question, am I more anxious than I was last week? And this is as of October 3rd. And it basically shows that India is the most anxious country at the moment, because all other countries over here, the other eight, are less anxious than Indians. So that they're setting a background in terms of this chart, I think. I'm not sure why these nine countries were selected for this. There's another one over here which answers several survey questions on two dates, just to see the difference between the changing thought process of the consumer. So first one I think was done on August 22nd, and this second one on October 3rd. I found two questions interesting over here. One is, I'm concern, no, not this one, I'm delaying large purchases, and for this question 69% answered yes, I'm delaying large purchases on August 22nd, and that has dropped to 62% on October 3rd. I thought yes, it should have dropped because of the surge in the sales we are seeing across the sectors, as we saw on the reports shared on the GAP platform. But I was actually expecting it to be even lower, which means that even lesser number of people should have been uh, not delaying the large purchases. The second question is that I found interesting was, I feel safe going to a restaurant. And this is interesting because 45% of people said that they felt safe going to a restaurant on August 22nd. And that has dropped to 37% on October 3rd, which is strange because at least by normal observation, I find more people out and about now. And even in the restaurants. So as the business has started doing well, so I don't know why lesser people would feel unsafe now. Yes, going by the COVID number, which is rising phenomenally of late. So theoretically, perhaps it makes sense, but not by observation. Maybe I'm wrong. The other thing, and there I've highlighted certain things that I found interesting, but I'm not going to touch upon everything over here. In terms of changing consumer preferences, and what the companies, FMCG companies, are doing to respond to it, there are certain points that they have come up with, like again, cost cutting, evaluating the priority segments. But what I really found interesting over here is a case study of a large FMCG player, which is participating in digitalization journey for general trade, GT as we call it, and they have introduced an app for its GT stakeholders, and that has now 0.23 million outlets on board, and that has resulted in them seeing 2x rise in order value and number of SKUs ordered. So this is very interesting, because if the companies are taking this step to finally invest in the GT channel, which is very large in India, as we know, and it's not easy to have those mom and pop shops on board. But if this is seems an innovative way of investing in an app to onboard them, I think this would have pretty significant repercussions from planning perspective, because this would finally enable companies to do the demand sensing through a tertiary sales forecast and the data which was not available before. So that's going to be significant as it becomes prevalent, or those companies which are able to take lead in this kind of investment. Secondly, as a result of that data being available, the supply chain would become more agile, which means that the channel inventory investments should see a reduction, and that should be able to fund this kind of investment to a large extent. So this is an interesting observation. Again, in this report, they have mentioned several cases and examples, but they haven't mentioned the name of the companies, understandably so. So that I found interesting. Then in the customer experience section, they have first defined three customer segments, which is digital natives, digital adopters, and old school behavior. Just to summarize it, basically the Gen Z and millennials are digital natives, the very young guys. The digital adopters are overlap of, say, baby boomers, our generation, and the millennials, and the old school is typically the baby boomers and our generation. So when I say ours, it's like mine, and I don't think there is anything new for us to know about their behaviors, but they have just summarized it. Now this is the infographic that I found interesting, because this can be used in the presentations. Apart from that, nothing new here, except for this one equation that they have put up over here. So if you want to define the human experience in terms of an equation, then you can probably make use of this. So basically it says that the customer experience plus the workforce experience plus the partner experience to the power of human centricity, as basically more personalized experience in all these three spheres would lead to a human experience score, if you can put numbers to that. Apart from that, what it basically says is it has four different sections, and in the my world I would call it quadrants, if you allow me. And it has the drivers of experience, the measurement criterion, operations, play area, and the touch points. Again, nothing new in terms of what we already know, but it's a good presentation, I would say. Um, in terms of customer experience, again, I found this interesting. What they stress upon over here in this para is that it's important that we make behind the scenes actions visible. So what they are saying is that even if you're doing certain things behind the scenes, it's very important for companies to make it visible. And by that, what they mean is that you should have all those signs that this has been sanitized, this has been cleaned, the temperature of the stuff has been taken, because I think what they're trying to say is that it's very important to convey the message to the consumers that you are taking an effort and you are doing all these things that are required to ensure that you get the trust of the consumer. And hence, just doing is not important. You need to blow the trumpet and make the action visible on the front end. And it gives a case in point over here, where it says that a leading food delivery app created visibility about safety measures by providing details such as name and temperature of stakeholder whose hands were passing the parcel. And I could relate to it, because I think what the company that they're referring to is Swiggy, I'm guessing it. because recently I ordered something from Swiggy app, and I could see that the person who was delivering, his name and his last temperature and when it was taking was visible. So I think they are referring to Swiggy, and as an example of this point on making actions visible. So this was interesting. Then I found a nice a new word, at least for me, perhaps a lot of you already know, called phygital, where they're saying that basically it's a combination of physical store and the digital store. So the companies have to now converge, right? And it also mentions that the consumers will no longer just come in and browse, and where do you require salespeople to push in for sales. uh, it says that people would already know what they need, and the stores would just need to facilitate the sales process. And I think that would also uh, define the change in roles of the sales staff at the store, because I agree to this, and I think a lot of it had already started happening. This is not really a COVID outcome, but probably COVID has accelerated this transformation, where we already do all our research before we go to the store. So the store guys basically need not be the sales guys. They need to be customer experience guys, where they ensure that the last mile sales process is happening in a very, very good way. Right. So I found that interesting. Then over here in this massive flow chart, in 2 pages, they have defined, rather they have reimagined the journey at a luxury hotel and at a shopping mall. Now, in terms of luxury hotel, I agree with it. I think a lot of it is already happening, so it's not really an imagination. But in terms of shopping mall, I found this quite repelling, because, and I would want to know your opinion on the chat, because what this does is that if this comes true, this imagination, a lot of people, including me, would definitely stop going to the mall, because this is too structured. It just takes away that fun experience of the mall. Basically what it's saying is that you need to book your time slot, you need to declare all your personal information, and you land up there, do the experience, and then when you book the time slot, you have to define it's a 3 hour slot that these malls would be giving. And if you are extending that, then you have to request for an extension. So it's basically very robotic experience, very structured, which is not what the retail therapy is all about. So this is something which is, as a consumer at least, it is not something which is nice. And I think as brands, it would become it would take away the concept of footfalls, right? Because you don't need to have people counters over there, and that actually used to lead to a lot of conversions and sales, which would not happen in this case, because you already know who's coming, you know what they're coming for. And I don't know why I would do this. I would just order from the web. So I don't know, I would want your feedback on that. um, then it had certain case studies, which I again didn't find anything new in that, so I'll skip. Um, it talks about the distribution channels post COVID, and over here there's nothing new again, but one thing I really found interesting was of a company in the rural areas. I think it's further down, but I'm stopping here to say that again, this is reiterated that sensing demand, forecasting accurately, and building visibility in the system are essential for companies to extract maximum value from existing infrastructure and assets. Now, this is a thought, again, as a thought, it's not new, but COVID has again accelerated the urgency of it, and the need to ensure that this happens quicker than later, because the whole importance is on the real-time visibility. And that's what the next paragraph here says: the real-time visibility on facilities, operations, and logistics will play a key role. So the uncertainty has become so high that if you are not having near real-time information, then you probably be left catching up. That's what they're saying. And perhaps the message here is that this is not just during this pandemic period, but this might become normal going forward, and especially because of the omni-channel presence, which the report would talk about later. Yeah, so this was a part I was looking for, where it says that investing in expanding distribution capabilities in rural markets. So again, the report brings about a very interesting point about the rise of the rural demand. So rural demand existing, and we know that from the for the e-commerce space, the rural demand was very important and pretty significant, because that was their gateway to all the products and that they could access, because they didn't have stores and high streets and malls there, but they had mobile phones. But now what they're bringing about in this report is not only that, but also because of this reverse migration that we have seen, some very painful pictures of, but loads of people have gone back from cities to the hinterland in the rural areas. So they have gone back, and to soothe the nerves, the government has done expenditures, especially through the Manrega scheme and stuff. So they have put money on hands of these people. Uh, this combination has resulted in spurring of the demand from these regions, and that is really driving a lot of sales for the companies. And so it is not just the e-commerce which the companies are relying on in terms of, say, Amazon, Flipkarts of the world, but they are themselves investing in the rural supply chain infrastructure. And over here in this paragraph, the companies are in the report is talking about a case in point, where a large Indian conglomerate is expanding its reach in rural markets by investing in building warehouse and distribution capabilities. The company plans to use these warehouses in addition to their brick and mortar outlets as last mile connection point for its e-commerce venture. So basically what they're doing is they're also providing the kiosks in these warehouses where people can come in, browse, and order. That's new, right? So it's not they're taking away the need for even the having a smartphone with data capabilities. So they are providing that kiosk, and hence the warehouses are acting as a also kind of an outlet reach for these areas. So I found that to be an interesting find. Then it also talks about the need for the companies to come together. So what COVID has done is that it has made people join hands rather than see each other as competitors. And what I'm referring to is the e-commerce and the delivery companies with the existing old school, rather old economic companies which were manufacturing. So there was, and also the go-to-market players like the mom-and-pop shops versus the e-commerce players. So there was a talk about the market share, the loss of the market for one for the gain of other, things like that. But what COVID has done is that it has made them join hands. So the online players are using the local shops for hyper local deliveries. The local delivery shops are using the uh, the delivery companies like Swiggy or whatever for the for reaching the consumer. So what the COVID lockdown period has done is that it has brought these all guys in the ecosystem together for a synergy, and I think that's a great outcome. That, come to think of it, this report highlights, and that's pretty interesting on how the foes of pre-COVID world have become friends in the post-COVID world. So that's interesting. There was interesting acronym here of offline to online, O2O. There are a lot of these infographics here and the charts which these big fours do pretty well, but honestly I found a lot of it being preachy than any information, so I would skip that. Again, in terms of the it stresses a lot on the need to adopt omni-channel experience for the companies for expanding reach. And over here I found something interesting, that changing consumer preferences are driving omni-channel adoption. And this is the preference of the customers, and it mentions the emotional connect as one of the very important expectation or preference of the customer. I'm not very sure about this, because especially with the new generation, I don't know how much of emotional connect that they have with things, that they are more driven by performance and actual capabilities of the product rather than the emotional connect. But maybe I'm wrong. They also stress a lot on the sustainability, environment preferences, and stuff like that in the report, that the company should spend and take cognizance of. It says that the omni-channel is the retail model of the future, with a shift in focus from the company to customer. Um, and in addition, by adopting this model, retailers can increase footfall in stores, improve conversions, and offer a better experience to customers than competition. Honestly, nothing new over here. I don't think so any company wasn't aware of it. In terms of the challenges of the omni-channel, I think what it mentions over here is that the lot of retail companies in India were expanded out from the acquisitions, and we see the one big one happening now as well. Now, because of this, the whole technology investments have been very scattered between the companies, and also the within the company there has been a need for an instant gratification, even when companies have done technology uh, investments. And what that means is basically you are fixing a point problem. So you automated something, and then you did high five that okay, now my this process is automated. But what they are saying is that this has resulted into a not so measurable actual gains. What company needs to do is to have an integrated information need. So again, the integrated technology space has become a big space to talk about, and in terms of investment and the need, including planning. And that's what they're saying, and which makes sense, especially if you have an omni-channel market strategy. Then you cannot have a inventory information or the sales information scattered between different systems, because that defeats the purpose. Of customers want a seamless experience, and the management behind the scenes need to be also seamless. So that's what they are also highlighting in the report, which I feel is important. And also again, while there is a huge need for it, I don't think so this is something that can be achieved by companies very, very quickly. However, the speed would probably determine the winners as well. um, Operate more efficiently. uh, Yeah, in terms of efficiency, one again important point I thought was on bi-directional supply chains. So more fulfillment happens through deliveries at home. The one of the drivers for that success is that you offer ability of return, which means that you need to also have a reverse supply chain in place. Also, because you're not having huge places to uh, stock inventory, not only what it needs to be sold, but also what's coming back. So that is something that they have also highlighted over here. That this creates a significant pressure on supply chains to configure a robust and visible reverse supply chain that sustains the cost structure of a business and addresses complexity. This is going to be a key thing that companies would need to start looking at and investing. Again, the speed would determine the winner, I guess. Um, then it talks about the considerations for organizations, 7 different points. Nothing very great for me over here. Um, Yeah, so they talk a lot about the you know hyper segmentation of the um, customers and market. One of the other things I found very interesting in the report is that what's saying that as a result of this uh, pandemic and the need for achieving operational efficiency, the companies would need to determine where to play. And that phrase I really like, because I think I agree that companies would now be forced to take some hard decisions on where to play in terms of geography, in terms of uh, customer segment, in terms of the product mix. So we might find companies exiting certain certain parts of these segments, either in terms of geography, product mix, customer segment, to become more efficient. Because in this scenario that is coming up, an omni-channel presence, the real-time information, you can't be spreading yourself too thin, especially with the constraints. So that is something that companies need to probably think hard about. One more thing that the report brings about is the rising of the value segment, which means that on one hand the rural demand is there, and on the other hand the on the urban area, but both are driving the value ask, which means that the down trading SKUs are more in demand in the rural, and in the urban areas. While the demand is there, it is there for the big pack sizes. So again, people are looking at the value, again driven by that they're spending more time at home, their consumption is higher, the entire family is at home, they're probably looking at the more value investments. So family size and big packs are more in demand. I think this would have repercussions, because now your the shelf spaces, the logistics, the and also the financial planning would all need to be relooked at. Because if your product mix is changing, then all your assumptions changes, right, for your margin requirement. So the FP&A guys need to again redraw their spreadsheets and come up with, of course, by in terms of being able to sense their product mix, and then again keep doing the assumptions till it kind of stabilizes. And on the supply chain side, it would require rethinking of the the mixes of SKUs, and wherever that information is utilized in terms of logistics or shelf spaces and stuff. So then this talks about a lot about the sustainability. I don't find that very interesting. Um, so I think that's about it. Those were the points that I liked about the report and I found interesting. I would let you discuss on the chat, and I would be really looking forward to your views. You could either run through the report. I've highlighted certain sections that I find interesting, and of course feel free to read everything else, or you can pick up the points that I raised and respond on that. Let's have a common learning. If you really liked this review of the report, not in terms of this review, but this idea of reviewing the report, let me know, so then we can do it more often. And I would also invite you to do the same. Any interesting thing that you come across, let's have a verbal review of it, so we can have more quicker discussion. Thank you and have a good day. Bye bye.